Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and stared out the small porthole of mining station, Delta 7. The endless void of space stretched before him, dotted with distant stars that seemed to mock his isolation. He'd been working here for 3 years now, ever since the rejection letter arrived. It's the letter that changed everything. The Zephyrian Academy had been his dream. Every human child grew up hearing stories about the massive space station that served as the galaxy's greatest center of learning. Students from dozens of worlds came there to study advanced sciences, galactic politics, and the mysteries of the universe. Jake had scored in the top 1% of all applicants across known space. His research on quantum mechanics had impressed even the strictest professors on Earth. But none of that mattered now. The primitive species. Restriction had ended his dreams before they could begin. Jake turned back to the mining equipment he was repairing. The work was simple, but it paid well. More importantly, it kept him busy enough that he could almost forget about what he had lost. Almost. On the other side of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Academy floated in the peaceful orbit of Kepler 4b. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its gleaming metal surface reflected the light of the system's twin suns, creating a beacon that could be seen from millions of miles away. Inside its corridors, thousands of students from across the galaxy pursued knowledge that their ancestors could never have imagined. The Academy's central plaza buzzed with activity. Krillian students, with their blue skin and 4 arms, gestured wildly as they debated philosophical concepts. Tall Valdorians glided through the crowds on their snake-like lower bodies, their golden eyes scanning data tablets. Small Nexian creatures, no bigger than Earth cats, but with intelligence that rivaled the greatest minds, scurried between the legs of larger species. But there were no humans. Dr. Quinter, respected Valdorian professor, entered his classroom with the same confidence he had shown for the past 30 years. His students settled into their seats, a mix of species that represented the best young minds in the galaxy. Today's lesson was one of his favorites. "Welcome to Comparative Species Studies," Dr. Quinter said, his voice carrying the musical quality common to his people. "Today we continue our examination of primitive civilizations and their impact on galactic development." A young Krillian named Zexthera raised one of her 4 hands. "Professor, are we going to discuss the humans again?" Dr. Quinter scolded. Eyes gleamed with what might have been amusement. "Zexthera, the human case study remains one of our most valuable lessons about the dangers of unchecked aggression." The class erupted in whispers and clicks, the various species expressing interest in their own unique ways. Humans had become something of a running joke at the Academy. The primitive apes from the 3rd planet of an unremarkable solar system, who somehow managed to achieve faster-than-light travel despite their obvious mental limitations. "As you all know," Dr. Quinter continued, "the Galactic Education Council made the difficult but necessary decision 3 years ago to restrict human participation in higher learning institutions. This decision was not made lightly, but the evidence was overwhelming." Zexthera spoke up again. "My father was on the council when they voted. He said the humans couldn't even fill out their applications properly. Half of them were covered in what they called coffee stains." The class burst into laughter. The idea that an advanced species would consume a liquid that could damage important documents seemed absurd to most of them. Dr. Quinter raised a scaled hand for silence. The council's decision was based on careful study of human behavior patterns. Their history is one of constant warfare. They've never achieved the peaceful cooperation that marks true civilization. Even their greatest achievements are tainted by violence. He activated a holographic display that showed Earth's history. Images of wars, weapons, and destruction filled the air above the students' heads. They reached their own moon using technology developed for warfare. They achieved faster-than-light travel only after a devastating global conflict nearly destroyed their planet. Everything they do is motivated by fear and aggression. A small Nexian student chittered from his perch on a specially designed desk. The translator rendered his words in standard Galactic. "Professor, my research indicates that humans have produced significant art and literature."
Surely this suggests some capacity for higher thought."
Dr. Quinter's expression grew serious. "An interesting point, Kixlow. But you must understand that even their creative works are obsessed with conflict. Their stories celebrate warriors and conquerors. Their music speaks of struggle and pain. This is not the mindset we want to introduce to our halls of learning. Back on mining station Delta 7, Jake Morrison was finishing his shift when his communication console chimed. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another work order or supply request. But something about the signal's frequency made him pause. It was coming from the direction of the Zephyrian Academy, curious. Jake adjusted his equipment to intercept the transmission. What he found made his blood run cold. The signal was a broadcast from Dr. Quinter's classroom. Jake watched in growing anger as the professor and his students discussed humans like they were dangerous animals. He listened to their jokes about coffee stains and primitive behavior. He saw the holographic displays that painted his entire species as nothing more than violent savages. But what hurt most was seeing how confidently they spoke. These beings had never met a human. They had never walked on Earth or seen the great cities humanity had built. They had never witnessed the countless acts of kindness and sacrifice that defined human nature just as much as any conflict. We're judging an entire species based on carefully selected data points and their own prejudices. Jake watched the entire lecture, his jaw clenched tight. When it ended, he sat in the darkness of his small quarters for a long time. The mining station hummed around him, its automated systems carrying out their endless work of extracting resources from the dead rocks of this forgotten system. Finally, Jake activated his personal communication device. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for. Commander Paul Harris had been his friend since childhood. They'd grown up dreaming of exploring the galaxy together. Paul had chosen the military path while Jake pursued academia. Both had been successful in their own ways until the ban changed everything. Jake began typing a message. His friend needed to see what was happening at the academy. Paul needed to understand how the galaxy really saw humanity, because Jake had a feeling that diplomatic protests and formal appeals weren't going to change anyone's mind. Sometimes, the only way to earn respect was to demand it. 3 days after Jake Morrison intercepted the classroom broadcast, things at the Zephyrian Academy grew worse. What started as academic discussion had turned into something far more cruel. The alien students discovered that mocking humans brought them together in ways nothing else could. Zexthera stood in the Academy's main recreation hall, surrounded by a crowd of eager students from different species. Her blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights as she activated a portable holographic projector. The device hummed to life, casting a three-dimensional image into the air above their heads. "Watch this," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "I spent all night working on this presentation. It shows what humans are really like." The hologram displayed a crude representation of Earth. Tiny figures that barely resembled humans stumbled around on the planet's surface, beating each other with clubs and grunting like animals. The alien students burst into laughter as they watched the primitive creatures struggle to build even the simplest structures. "Look at them trying to make fire," shouted a Valdorian student named Sylphan. "They cannot even hold their tools properly." The holographic humans in the display were shown discovering space travel by accident. In Zexthara's version of events, the first human spaceship was launched when a primitive human fell into a pile of explosive materials. The ship spun wildly through space, completely out of control, while the human inside screamed in terror.
This
"Is how they reached the stars," Zexthera announced proudly. "Pure dumb luck. They have no real understanding of the technology they use." More students gathered around the display. Soon, nearly 100 beings from dozens of species were watching and laughing. Some took recordings with their personal devices, planning to share the jokes with friends on their homeworlds. A group of Nexian students began creating their own version of the story. Their presentation showed humans trying to communicate with advanced alien species by throwing rocks and making loud noises. When the aliens tried to teach them mathematics, the humans ate the equations. Thinking they were some kind of food, Dr. Quinter arrived at the recreation hall and smiled when he saw what his students were doing. Instead of stopping them, he encouraged their creativity. "Excellent work. he told Zexthera. This kind of comparative analysis helps you understand why the Galactic Education Council made the right choice. The professor activated the hall's main display system, projecting the student presentations onto the massive screens that covered the walls. Now every student in the recreation area could see the crude animations and hear the mocking commentary. These presentations demonstrate critical thinking, Dr. Quinter announced to the growing crowd. You are learning to analyze species behavior and draw logical conclusions. The humans serve as a perfect example of how aggression and primitive thinking prevent true advancement. Word spread quickly through the Academy's communication networks. Within hours, students who had missed the live presentations were downloading copies and creating their own versions. The mockery became a competition, with different groups trying to create the most ridiculous depiction of human behavior. A team of Andromedon students produced a documentary-style presentation that claimed humans had never actually invented anything themselves. According to their research, every human achievement was either stolen from other species or discovered by accident. They showed fake historical footage of humans finding abandoned alien technology and claiming it as their own. Humans are natural thieves, the lead Andromeda narrator explained in the presentation. They take credit for discoveries made by superior beings, then use those discoveries to hurt others. This is why they must never be allowed into civilized society. The presentations grew more elaborate each day. Students began organizing viewing parties where dozens of beings would gather to watch the latest anti-human content. Some groups created interactive experiences where viewers could control holographic humans and watch them fail at simple tasks. The Academy's social networks were flooded with human-related content. Memes showed humans trying to eat spaceships or getting lost while walking in straight lines. Popular jokes included asking what the difference was between a human and a broken computer, with the answer being that broken computers could still be fixed. Meanwhile, on mining station Delta 7, Jake Morrison continued monitoring the Academy's broadcasts. Each new presentation made him angrier than the last. He watched as beings who had never met a human created increasingly absurd stories about his species. The worst part was seeing how much joy they took in their cruelty. Jake had tried to ignore the broadcasts at first. He told himself that the opinions of ignorant aliens should not matter to him. But as the mockery spread throughout the Academy and began reaching other parts of the galaxy, he realized this was bigger than just academic prejudice. The alien students were not just making jokes, they were creating propaganda. Every presentation, every meme, every cruel animation was being recorded and shared across the galactic communication networks. Billions of beings who had never heard of humans before were now being introduced to them as primitive, violent, and stupid creatures. Jake watched a particularly cruel presentation that showed human children being taught to fight before they could walk. The alien creators had completely invented this scenario, but they presented it as factual research. They claimed that human parents threw their babies into combat training as soon as they were born. Human families compete by seeing whose children can cause the most damage. The narrator explained with scientific authority, this is why their society is built around conflict. Violence is literally programmed into them from birth. Jake turned off the monitor and sat in darkness for several minutes. The mining station's computers hummed quietly around him, processing data and monitoring the automated equipment that kept the facility running. Outside his small window, the stars looked the same as always. But Jake felt like his entire universe had changed. He activated his communication console and began typing a message to Commander Paul Harris. This time he included video files from the Academy broadcasts. He wanted his friend to see exactly what the galaxy thought of humanity. He wanted Paul to understand that this was not just ignorance or misunderstanding. This was war. War of ideas and reputation that humanity was losing badly. The aliens had decided that humans were monsters, and they were spreading that belief to every corner of known space. Soon, no human would be welcome anywhere in the galaxy. Jake finished his message and sent it through the military communication channels that Paul had given him years ago. To do because diplomatic solutions were clearly not working. Aliens did not want to understand humans. They wanted to destroy them without ever firing a shot. Lisa Turner sat in the sterile waiting room of the Galactic Council building on Centauri Prime. She had been waiting for 3 hours. Watching alien diplomats and officials walk past her without so much as a glance, her formal request for a hearing had been approved, but barely. The council secretary had made it clear that this was a waste of everyone's time. Lisa straightened her dark blue, diplomatic uniform and checked her presentation materials one more time. She had spent months preparing. For this moment, her briefcase contained detailed reports on human achievements, scientific discoveries, and cultural contributions. She had testimonials from the few alien species who had worked with humans and found them to be intelligent and peaceful. This was humanity's last chance to overturn the primitive species restriction through official channels. The council will. "See you now," announced a tall Centaurian official, his 6 arms managing multiple data tablets at once. His tone suggested he would rather be doing anything else. Lisa followed him into the council chamber, a massive circular room with seats, arranged in tiers that rose toward a domed ceiling. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated areas, their alien forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center of the room stood a simple podium where Lisa would make her case. Councillor Vexara, the Krillian, who served as the current council president, called the session to order. Her blue skin was darker than most of her species, marking her as someone of great age and authority. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "We are here to consider the petition from the Human Diplomatic Corps," she announced. "Representative Turner, you have 15 minutes to present your case." Lisa approached the podium with confidence she did not feel. Around her, alien representatives whispered among themselves or checked their data devices. Few seemed interested in what she had to say. "Honored counselors," Lisa began, "I come before you today to request that the Galactic Education Council reconsider the restrictions placed on human participation in higher education. The decision made 3 years ago was based on incomplete information and unfair prejudice." She activated her holographic display and showed images of human cities, universities, and research facilities. Humans have made remarkable progress in science, technology, and social development. We have ended global warfare on our planet and achieved peaceful cooperation between all our nations. We have contributed valuable research to galactic knowledge. Banks and have always honored our treaties with other species. Councillor Quintel, a Valdorian who sat in the Education Committee, interrupted her presentation. "Representative Turner, are you suggesting that this council made an error in judgment? Our decision was based on extensive research into human behavior patterns?" "With respect, Councillor," Lisa replied, "your research focused only on our historical conflicts. You've ignored our achievements in art, science, and philosophy. You dismissed our capacity for growth and change. Every species has a violent past, but you have judged us by different standards." She showed data comparing human development to other species at similar stages of advancement. The numbers clearly demonstrated that humans were progressing at a rate equal to or faster than most council member species had achieved, but the alien representatives were not impressed. Councillor Zixith, an insectoid being from the hive worlds, clicked his mandibles dismissively. "Your statistics are meaningless. We have recent evidence of continued human aggression and primitive behavior. The students at Zephyrian Academy have been conducting ongoing research into human psychology. Their findings confirm our original assessment. Lisa felt her heart sink. She knew about the Academy broadcasts that Jake Morrison had been monitoring. The cruel presentations and mockery had spread far beyond the student body. Counselor, those student presentations are not legitimate research. They are based on false information and deliberate distortion of facts. Are you calling our finest young minds liars? Counselor Vexera asked, her voice turning cold. I am saying they have been given incomplete data and have reached incorrect conclusions, Lisa replied carefully. If the council would allow human students to attend the academy, you would see the truth about our species. The chamber erupted in clicks, hisses, and other sounds of alien disapproval. Counselor Theron, whose species resembled walking crystals, spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. The humans demonstrate their primitive nature even now. They cannot accept the judgment of superior beings. They argue and demand what they have not earned. Lisa tried to continue her presentation, but the council members had made up their minds before she entered the room. They whispered among themselves in their native languages, ignoring her completely. When she attempted to show evidence of human scientific achievements, they dismissed it as stolen alien technology. The humans seek to infiltrate our institutions, declared Counselor Vexera. They wish to corrupt our young people with their aggressive philosophies. This petition is not just denied. We are extending the primitive species restriction indefinitely. Furthermore, we recommend that all council member species limit their contact with human representatives. The vote was unanimous. 47 species agreed that humans should remain banned from galactic higher education. Several representatives suggested that humanity should be restricted from other galactic institutions as well. Lisa gathered her materials with trembling hands. 3 years of preparation had been destroyed in 15 minutes. As she left the chamber, she could hear the alien representatives celebrating their decision. To them, keeping humans away from their children was a victory for civilization, too. Days later, Jake Morrison received a priority military communication on mining station Delta 7. The message was from Commander Paul Harris, and it was exactly what Jake had been hoping to hear. Paul Harris stood on the bridge of the experimental vessel, Silent Thunder, reading Jake's message for the third time. The video files from the Academy broadcasts made his jaw clench with anger. The diplomatic failure at the Galactic Council made him want to punch something. Paul had served in the colonial wars, the last major conflict humanity had fought before achieving interstellar peace. He had seen what humans could accomplish when they were pushed too far. The aliens thought they knew about human aggression, but they had no idea what they were dealing with. Captain, called Amy Rodriguez from the navigation console. We have received clearance for the deep space mission. All crew members are aboard and ready. Paul looked around the bridge of his ship. 12 of humanity's best military specialists had volunteered for this mission without even knowing what it involved. They trusted him completely, just as he trusted them. Amy, set course for the Zephyrian Academy, Paul ordered. Maximum stealth protocols. I want us invisible to every sensor they have. Ben Collins, the chief engineer, looked up from his console. Captain, what exactly are we planning to do when we get there? Paul smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We are going to give those alien students a real education about humans. They want to study our species. Fine. We will give them a chance to observe us up close. Kate Johnson, the communications officer, activated her electronic warfare systems. Sir, should we inform Earth Command about our mission? Negative, Paul replied. This is an independent operation. Earth Command would try to stop us, and we cannot afford any delays. The aliens have had 3 years to spread their lies about humanity. It is time they learned the truth. The Silent Thunder engaged its quantum masking systems and disappeared. From all conventional sensors, the ship was humanity's most advanced prototype, built using a combination of human engineering and recovered alien technology. But what made it truly dangerous was not its weapons or its stealth capabilities. What made it dangerous was the human crew that operated it. As the ship accelerated toward the Zephyrian Academy, Paul Harris began planning the most important lesson those alien students would ever receive. They thought they understood human capabilities based on their crude presentations and racist assumptions. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The silent thunder drifted through space like a ghost. Its quantum masking technology bent light and energy around the ship's hull, making it completely invisible to every known scanning method in the galaxy. Commander Paul Harris stood on the bridge, watching the Zephyrian Academy grow larger on the main screen. The massive space station looked peaceful in the light of the twin suns. Thousands of small ships moved around it like insects, carrying students and supplies to and from the Academy. None of them had any idea that humanity's most dangerous vessel was approaching them. "Distance to target?" Paul asked quietly. Amy Rodriguez checked her navigation console. 200,000 kilometers in closing, Captain. You're still completely undetected." Paul nodded. The silent thunder was operating in full stealth mode, which meant complete communication, silence, and minimal energy output. His crew had been preparing for this moment during the entire 3-week journey from human space. Every system had been tested and retested. Every possible scenario had been planned for. Ben Collins looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, all stealth systems are functioning perfectly. Their sensors are looking right through us. It is like we do not exist," Kate Johnson monitored the Academy's communication channels from her position at the electronic warfare console. "Sir, I am picking up multiple broadcasts from inside the station. Looks like they are having another one of their human mockery sessions." Paul's jaw tightened. "Put it on the main screen." The bridge display showed the interior of the Academy's main recreation hall. Hundreds of alien students had gathered around holographic projectors, watching the latest anti-human presentations. The crude animations showed humans as mindless beasts who had somehow stumbled into space travel through pure accident. Steve Mitchell, the Marine assault leader, watched the display with growing anger. "Captain, those alien kids have no idea what they are dealing with. They think we are stupid animals." "That is exactly what makes this mission possible," Paul replied. "They have convinced themselves that humans are primitive and harmless. They're not prepared for what we can actually do." On the screen, a group of Krillian students had created a new presentation showing humans trying to operate a spaceship. In their version, the human crew was hitting random buttons and hoping for the best. When the ship finally moved, it was only because the humans had accidentally fallen against the controls. The alien students laughed and cheered at the presentation. Some of them took recordings to share with friends on their homeworlds. They were having so much fun mocking humans that they did not notice the security alerts flashing on the Academy's monitoring systems. Because while the aliens could not see the silent thunder, their computers could detect the tiny gravitational anomalies caused by the ship's mass. The readings were so small that the automated systems flagged them as sensor errors and deleted them without alerting anyone. Kate Johnson had been tracking these error messages for the past hour. "Captain, their security system is trying to detect us, but it keeps dismissing the readings as impossible. Their computers cannot believe that a ship this advanced could approach them undetected. How long until we reach optimal position?" Paul asked. Amy checked her calculations. 15 minutes. "Sir, we will be close enough to begin operations at that point." Paul activated the ship's internal communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We are approaching the target. Remember, our mission is not to destroy or kill. We're here to educate. These aliens think they understand humans based on their stupid presentations. We're going to show them what human tactical thinking really looks like." The crew members at their stations nodded silently. They had all volunteered for this mission without knowing the details, but they trusted their captain. And they were tired of watching their species be mocked by beings who had never met a human. On the main screen, the Academy's broadcasts continued. Dr. Quinter had joined the student gathering and was giving a lecture about human psychology. He claimed that humans were incapable of long-term planning because their primitive brains could only focus on immediate threats. Humans react to danger like frightened animals. The professor explained to his eager audience, "They cannot think strategically or adapt to changing situations. This is why they have never developed truly advanced technology. Ben Collins laughed, quietly at his console. Professor, you are about to get a very practical lesson in human strategic thinking. The Silent Thunder continued its approach, invisible and silent. The ship's advanced sensors were already mapping every system on the Academy station. Kate Johnson's computers were identifying power sources, communication networks, and defensive systems. Amy Rodriguez was calculating approach vectors and escape routes. Steve Mitchell was studying the station's layout and identifying key tactical positions. Everything the aliens thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. They believed humans were primitive because they focused only on historical conflicts and ignored the strategic brilliance that had ended those conflicts. They saw human technology as crude because they did not understand the elegant simplicity of human engineering solutions. Most importantly, they assumed that humans would respond to threats in predictable ways. They expected brute force and direct confrontation because that is what their presentations had taught them to expect. They were not prepared for the sophisticated psychological warfare that the Silent Thunder crew had planned. Captain Kate Johnson reported, "I am detecting increased chatter on their communication channels. They are organizing what they call Human Appreciation Week. It is going to be 7 days of non-stop mockery and fake research presentations." Paul smiled coldly. Perfect timing. They have gathered their best students and faculty in one place to celebrate their ignorance. We can educate all of them at once. The Academy continued to broadcast its cruel presentations, unaware that every word was being recorded by human intelligence systems. The alien students created increasingly absurd scenarios, showing humans as creatures too stupid to understand their own technology. In one presentation, human astronauts were shown getting lost on a straight flight path between Earth and Mars. In another, human scientists were depicted as accidentally discovering fire while trying to eat rocks. The alien audiences loved these presentations and shared them across the galaxy's communication networks. But while the aliens focused on their entertainment, the Silent Thunder moved into position. The human crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing systems and running final checks. They moved like a machine, each person knowing exactly what they needed to do. 10 minutes to optimal position, Amy announced. Paul looked around his bridge one final time. His crew was ready. Their ship was ready. The aliens below had no idea what was about to happen to them. "All stations, prepare for Operation Start," Paul ordered. "Kate, begin electronic warfare protocols. Ben, stand by stealth systems. Amy, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Steve, ready your Marines?" The Silent Thunder drifted closer to the Academy, still invisible and undetected. Soon, the alien students would learn what human tactical thinking really looked like. They wanted to study humans so badly that they had created an entire week of mockery and false research. Paul Harris was going to give them a real education. At exactly 14:30 station time, Kate Johnson began the operation. Her fingers moved across the electronic warfare console with practiced precision, sending invisible signals into the Academy's computer networks. The aliens had no idea that their most secure systems were being quietly invaded by human technology. "First phase initiated, Captain," Kate reported. "I have access to their communication grid." Commander Paul Harris watched the main screen as the Academy's internal broadcasts continued. Hundreds of alien students were still gathered in the recreation hall, laughing at presentations that showed humans as bumbling fools. Their timing could not have been better. "Begin selective shutdowns," Paul ordered. "Start with non-essential systems. Let them think it is just technical problems." Kate's program slipped through the Academy's defenses like ghosts. The alien computer security was advanced but predictable. It followed standard galactic protocols that humans had studied for years. The aliens never considered that someone might use completely different approaches to break their systems. The first signs of trouble appeared in the Academy's outer sections. Lights flickered in empty corridors. Automated cleaning systems stopped working. Temperature controls began cycling randomly in unused rooms. The problems were small and seemed unrelated in the main computer center. Valdorian technicians noticed the anomalies and began running diagnostic programs. They found nothing wrong with their equipment. The computer systems reported normal operation, even as strange malfunctions spread throughout the station. "Sir," Amy Rodriguez called from her navigation console, "the Academy is trying to scan for threats. Their sensors are searching in all directions." "Let them look," Paul replied. "They cannot find what they do not believe exists." The silent thunder remained completely invisible while moving around the massive station. The ship's quantum masking technology was beyond anything the aliens had encountered. Their sensors detected empty space where the human vessel actually flew. Kate Johnson smiled as her programs took control of more Academy systems. "Captain, I now have access to their emergency protocols. Should I disable their distress beacons?" "Not yet," Paul said. "Let them call for help when they realize what is happening. I want everyone to see this." In the recreation hall, Dr. Quinter was introducing another student presentation when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in after 10 seconds, bathing the room in red light. The alien students looked around nervously as their holographic displays flickered and died. "Technical difficulties," Dr. Quinter announced calmly.
Engineering.
"Staff will resolve this shortly." But in the Academy's central control room, panic was beginning to spread. Krillian and Valdorian technicians worked frantically as more systems failed without explanation. Their computers showed no signs of external attack or internal malfunction. Everything simply stopped working. "Phase 2, Paul ordered. Kate Johnson activated the next level of her electronic assault. Her programs took control of the Academy's internal sensors, making them report false information to the security staff. Guards who tried to investigate malfunctions found themselves looking in the wrong places, following sensor readings that led nowhere. At the same time, Ben Collins began manipulating the station's power grid. He carefully shut down specific systems while leaving others running, creating a pattern that made no sense to the alien technicians. Elevators stopped between floors. Air recycling systems ran at maximum speed in empty rooms while shutting down. In occupied areas, the alien students in the recreation hall began to panic as the air grew thick and stale. Their perfect station was falling apart around them, and no one could explain why. Some students tried to leave, but the doors would not respond to their commands. "The exits are locked," shouted Zexthara, pressing her forehands against the sealed entrance. "We are trapped in here." Dr. Quinter tried to contact security, but his communication device produced only static. Throughout the Academy, normal operations ground to a halt as essential systems failed in sequence. The aliens had built their station using the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but none of it worked against human electronic warfare techniques. "Phase 3, Paul commanded. Steve Mitchell's Marines took control of the Academy's security. Drones using Kate's access programs. Small robotic units that normally patrolled the corridors began moving in coordinated patterns, herding alien students and staff into specific areas. The drones did not harm anyone. They made it clear that resistance would not be tolerated. Amy Rodriguez brought the silent thunder into visual range of the Academy's main windows. For just 30 seconds, the ship dropped its stealth field and became visible to anyone looking outside. The massive human vessel appeared like a dark shadow against the stars, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Then it vanished again, leaving the aliens wondering if they had imagined it. "Did you see that?" gasped a Nexian student, pointing. At the empty space where the ship had been, there was something out there. But when other students looked, they saw nothing. The silent thunder had disappeared as quickly as it appeared, leaving only questions and growing fear in the Academies. Command Center Station Commander Vathak finally realized they were under attack. The elderly Andromedon tried to activate the station's defensive systems, but nothing responded to his commands. Every weapon, every shield generator, every emergency protocol had been disabled by invisible enemies. "Send a distress signal to the Galactic Council," he ordered his communication officer. "I cannot, sir," the officer replied. "All long-range transmitters are offline. We are completely cut off from outside contact." Paul Harris watched the chaos spreading through the Academy with satisfaction. His crew had taken control of the most advanced educational facility in the galaxy without firing a single shot. The aliens who thought humans were primitive were learning exactly how wrong they were. "Begin final phase," Paul ordered. "Open all communication channels." Kate Johnson's programs activated every speaker, every display screen, and every communication device on the Academy. Paul's voice echoed through every corridor, every classroom, and every hiding place where terrified alien students cowered in the darkness. "Attention, students and faculty of Zephyrian Academy," Paul's voice boomed through the station. "This is Commander Paul Harris of the human vessel, Silent Thunder. You wanted to study human capabilities. Your education begins now." The aliens listened in stunned silence as the human commander continued his broadcast. Everything they believed about human technology and intelligence crumbled around them as they realized the truth. They were completely helpless against opponents they had dismissed as primitive animals. The humans had eliminated every defensive system, every escape route, and every means of calling for help. The greatest educational institution in the galaxy had been conquered, without a single shot being fired, and the lesson was just beginning. The silence that followed Commander Paul Harris's announcement lasted exactly 12 seconds. Then chaos erupted throughout the Zephyrian Academy as the full reality of their situation hit the alien students and faculty in the recreation hall. Hundreds of beings who had spent weeks mocking human intelligence now cowered in terror. Their crude presentations about primitive humans had been replaced by the undeniable truth that a single human ship had conquered their entire station without firing a weapon. Dr. Quinter tried to maintain his authority, but his voice shook as he spoke. "Students, remain calm. This is obviously some kind of trick or illusion. Humans do not possess technology capable of what we are experiencing." Zexera laughed bitterly, her blue skin pale with fear. "Professor, look around you. Every system on this station is under their control. They made us prisoners in our own academy. How is that primitive?" Paul Harris's voice returned to the speakers, calm and controlled. "Dr. Quinter, your lessons about human behavior were quite entertaining. You taught your students that humans cannot think strategically or adapt to changing situations. You claimed we are nothing more than violent animals who stumbled into space travel by accident." The professor said nothing. What could he say? Everything he had taught about humans had been proven completely wrong in the span of 6 hours. "Me provide you with a more accurate education," Paul continued. "Human tactical doctrine is based on asymmetric warfare principles that your species have never encountered. We do not fight the way you expect us to fight. We do not think the way you expect us to think. This is why you never saw us coming." On the bridge of the Silent Thunder, Kate Johnson monitored communication attempts from across the galaxy. Word of the Academy's situation was spreading despite their communication blackout. Students had been sending personal messages before. The systems went down, and those messages were reaching their homeworlds. Captain Kate reported, "I am detecting incoming ships from multiple species. It looks like everyone wants to see what happened here." Paul nodded. "Perfect. Let them come. The more witnesses we have, the better." Amy Rodriguez tracked the approaching vessels on her navigation display. "Sir, we have Krillian warships, Valdorian, diplomatic cruisers, and at least 12 other species represented. They will be here within the hour." "Maintain stealth protocols," Paul ordered. "Let them investigate. They will find exactly what we want them to find." In the Academy's command center, Station Commander Vothak finally managed to restore partial communications with the approaching rescue ships. His conversation with the Krillian fleet commander was broadcast throughout the station for everyone to hear. "Commander Vothak, what is your status?" the Krillian captain demanded. "We received reports that your station was under attack." Vothak's response was barely a whisper. "Captain, we have been completely compromised by a single human vessel. They have total control of our systems. We cannot move. We cannot fight. We cannot even call for help without their permission." The silence from the rescue fleet lasted even longer than the one that had followed Paul's announcement. When the Krillian captain finally spoke again, his voice carried disbelief and growing fear. "Commander, that is impossible. Our intelligence reports indicate that humans lack the technology for such an operation. Are you certain you are dealing with humans? Paul Harris answered the question himself, his voice cutting through their conversation. Captain Nexfer of the Krillian Third Fleet, this is Commander Harris. Yes, you are dealing with humans. Yes, we are capable of much more than your intelligence reports suggest. The approaching alien ships slowed their advance as the implications sank in. If humans could disable the galaxy's most advanced educational facility without being detected, what else were they capable of? How many other human ships might be operating undetected throughout galactic space? Ben Collins brought the Silent Thunder's weapon systems online, not to threaten anyone but to demonstrate their capabilities. The ship's energy signatures appeared on every scanner in the system, showing technology that was decades ahead of anything the aliens possessed. As you can see, Paul's voice continued, human engineering combines the best of our own innovations with improvements to alien technology that you never considered. We do not just copy what we find, we make it better. Steve Mitchell's Marines began releasing control of the Academy's systems one by one, but in a specific order that demonstrated complete mastery of the station's operations. Lights came back on in predetermined patterns. Air circulation resumed in carefully planned sequences. Even the doors opened and closed according to human commands. The alien students and faculty watched in amazement as their station came back to life under human control. Every system that had failed now worked perfectly, but only when the humans allowed it to work. Dr. Quinter found his voice again, but now it carried a very different tone. Commander Harris, what do you want from us? Paul's answer was broadcast, not just to the Academy, but to every ship in the system, ensuring that his words would reach the farthest corners of the galaxy. We want what we have always wanted, Professor. It's recognition that humans deserve to be treated as equals in galactic society. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the thousands of aliens listening to his broadcast. The Galactic Education Council will reverse the primitive species restriction immediately. Not because we ask politely, but because you now understand the cost of underestimating humans. On Mining Station Delta 7, Jake Morrison watched the Academy broadcasts with tears in his eyes. His friend had done something that diplomatic negotiations could never accomplish. Paul had forced the galaxy to see humans as they really were, not as the primitive caricatures that alien prejudice had created. The rescue ships reached the Academy, but made no attempt to board or interfere. Their captains knew they were outmatched by technology and tactics they did not understand. Instead, they waited and watched as the human commander delivered his final lesson. You spent years creating presentations that showed humans as violent animals, Paul said, but notice that we did not harm a single being on your station. We could have destroyed you all, but we chose education over destruction. This is what human strategic thinking really looks like. The Silent Thunder began to fade from sensor readings as its stealth systems reactivated. But before it vanished completely, Paul Harris delivered his last message to the galaxy. The ban on human education ends today. Any species that wishes to test human capabilities again will find us ready to provide another demonstration. But we would prefer to use our abilities for cooperation rather than conflict. Choice is yours. Within hours of the Academy incident, the Galactic Education Council held an emergency session. The vote to lift the primitive species restriction was unanimous. No council member wanted to face the consequences of keeping humans angry. 3 weeks later, Jake Morrison received his acceptance letter to Zephyrian Academy. He would be the first human student to walk those corridors, but he would not be the last. Applications from human students flooded in from across known space. The galaxy had learned that humans were not primitive animals who had stumbled into space travel. They were predators who had chosen to be civilized, and that choice made them far more dangerous than any alien species had ever imagined.